How's it going, everybody? I really hope you guys are having a very good week. Happy 4th of July. First of all, I do apologize for not making any videos while I was gone. For people that do not know, I was away for 2 weeks. I was in Mexico, but technically, it was not a vacation trip. It was just a small trip to like the dental, to the medic. For people that do not know, if you're not from Latin America, if you're not from Mexico, but if you happen to have a little bit of let's say you need some dental work done, and yeah, Mexico, it's a little bit cheaper, but not all the time is the best thing. Sometimes you pay cheap and you pay a higher price, but in this case, I just happen to know a really reliable dental that we go from time to time when things get a little bit expensive. And this is a decade where you don't have the luxury to be yourself in debt or waste some valuable money that you work so hard and save just because sometimes in this beautiful country, it's very unachievable to go to the dental or go to the hospital. So that was one of the reasons I left. And at the same time, I didn't have a good start. I forgot my luggage. I was having a very bad day. Um, I was sick before I left. I was not feeling quite the best. I was stressed out. I was, getting everything done before I leave. And it wasn't like I forgot. It's just I loaded a lot. I loaded some luggage, and for some odd reason, I just needed to take a break, like go sit down and take a quick power trip nap. And I left, and I forgot my luggage, so I had to do a little bit of quick shopping. And just my 2 weeks went extremely fast. It was from doctor appointments, talking, visiting some few family relatives I haven't seen in over a decade, and that's how your 2 weeks go extremely quickly. And there was not enough time to even make a video. It was not enough, and I have no free space, no privacy to even make a video, because obviously I cannot compromise my channel to people that are close by. I gotta keep this very safe and very well hidden from people that I know. But anyway, so that's not the purpose of the video. Just an update on what happened. And like I said, I didn't even have a vacation. I didn't even explore the city as much. So the only thing I did as fun was the small videos that I show you guys on the short videos on my channel. So that's pretty much what I did. I'll make another video, but the purpose of this video actually is things that I acknowledge in Mexico, that you get to realize something. Not everything has always been a, I don't know how to put it. I don't know if it was an ideology or a norm or a popular thing at the moment or every decade. So let's get started. So one thing I begin to realize something is, this is why I'm going to stand by the things that I believe now. Is the more I see the world, the more I just want to be kind of alone, get used to this lifestyle, and just focus on my retirement goals. Focus more on basically where to retire, where to spend my last days, and this is where I'm going to draw the deadline. I don't care for kids, I don't care for a wife anymore. But here's one thing that I'm going to mention. I really hope you guys don't get offended. This is not because I am blue pill, red pill. Like I said, I'm just me. I'm very unique. I'm a guy that obviously I have my ideology, but I'm not going to be biased by it and tell you how to live your life or what to do. Because the more I do reading, the more I do research, the more I listen to a couple unpopular black pillars, which I'm not going to say the names. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I am. But shout out to them. I just rather not say any names because there's a little bit of I feel like there's a little bit of a drama right now, which I don't want to this channel into. Like I said, I just want to be me. So first of all, for me, it's not over. I don't call it over. It's just the norm has changed drastically. I'm a guy that was born in the mid '90s, kind of raised in the early 2000s and mid 2000s into the present time. And yeah, everything has changed drastically ever since social media rise. Not just like dating wise or social like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, but in reality, everybody has modified their way of thinking, their way of living. Not everybody's like the old style where you cannot just go and talk to your random girl and say you're interested in her. Even though you try to do it as polite as you can, because first of all, if they don't really like you, they're not going to take your word for it. If you're like unattractive, creeper looker, then it's pretty much it's going to be a very unsuccessful and very difficult to even get a small positive reaction from a girl. Even let's say if she tells you polite that she's not interested in you, and things back in the day it was a little bit easier, but now in today's world, everybody has been influenced by a sort of channel on YouTube or on TikTok. So I already acknowledged that it's not because women chose the wrong path. It's always been like that. We keep evolving further and further. It doesn't matter whatever people try to do to bring the old days back. It's not going to come back. In my own opinion, women that claim to be trad-wise or claim to be interested in that type of lifestyle, they don't really like it. They don't really care for it. They only do it for monetization on their channel. They just care to be influencers of any sort of kind because they know men are they're going to be simping for them. These girls know that they're going to be watched by every guy that is a loner, a simp. For people that feel in this particular way, if you're a guy that feels simp, not a simp, but excuse me, if you feel alone, you feel no, you don't have any reaction from women. Sometimes these girls will pose as a chatwire or as a girl that is going to be on your side, on your ideology, such as on the in some of these like social medias, which I'm not going to mention any names. But if this is a particular social media that has been bought out and they changed the name, and now you see these chatwives, you see these conservative women, and you can see the men get excited when these girls respond to their comments, if it's positive or negative. But anyway, so yeah, so here in the U.S., here in Mexico, because obviously U.S. is more conservative now. Mexico is like between conservative and leftist. Both sides, if you're not a charismatic or a popular individual, if you have nothing exciting about you, you're just going to be totally dismissed. You're not going to be acknowledged of your existence because obviously you're not attractive. It doesn't even matter anymore how good looking you are. Sometimes in this sphere, yeah, looks is very important. You might get acknowledged, but if you're more of a dorky, shy, good-looking individual, you might have luck with the ugliest girl who have very low self-esteem or unfit women that might give you the chance of the date, but more popular girls that have So basically, if you're a dorky but very attractive, it might work in high school, but once you're out of high school and let's say you're above 25 years old, girls are not, they might start to really dismiss looks because they're looking for a guy that is okay. He might, if he has a unique look and he's fit, but he has his life together, he's charismatic, he is a guy that's willing to take a lot of risks. Girls are more attracted to that. They are more attracted to adrenaline, sometimes violence, sometimes to unpredictable men. And compared to this like other type of man where you're not really you're not a guy that takes risky um you're not a guy that wants to take risky decisions where it's going to bring you hardcore consequences, and girls seem to be not into those type of guys. You can be a guy that has his life together. You're just a guy that is calm, simple, normal. You don't want to get yourself into any situation that's going to haunt you. And girls are not, yeah, they're not going to really acknowledge your existence because you're not interesting, you're not fun, you're not something that is going to bring them joy, memories. Because it's not their fault. It's just that's how it is today. So this is why I don't see when my mom used to say to me, you got to study something that is going to make yourself a name, and then that's how you're gonna get the best looking girl. But it's not the case at all. I've seen from time to time, even teachers. Teachers are the ones that are preaching feminists, teaching women that men ain't this, men ain't that, and they're the first ones to date some of the most bummish individuals out there just because he's good looking, he's fit, or sometimes not the best looking individual. He's not a chat, but he's like a regular six, but he's a guy that is intimidating. He takes risky um, let's say he's not scared of consequences. That's the best way I can put it. So that's basically what it is, and this is why the more I see it now, this is why I gotta start to love myself more and start to really look for my future and not even worried about if I don't get married, if I don't have any kids. I gotta exclude that out of my list rapidly because if you're already 31 and you have no chances of dating, like in my case, girls don't even know that it exists in my small town, except for a few. But these girls only want a guy that's gonna be a provider more than anything. And a lot of the time, they don't even want kids. So why even you gotta really think about it. So in my case, I'm not interested. And I don't have anything. I don't have that character of the bad boy. And when I mean bad boy, not a criminal, but a guy that takes risky and unplanned decisions that can backfire rapidly and you're in a very desperate situation. But if you're a guy that gets out of it anyway, even if it takes a long time, girls seem to be very attracted to that. That's what I noticed from my conversations in the early days with women. Women seem to be more into memories, adrenaline, things like that. So that's one thing I acknowledge here in the United States. In Mexico, it's not too different. A lot of people in the West believe that Latino girls are tread-wise or more girls, that's going to be more loyal, and that's not the case at all. A lot of Latina women might seem to be tread-wise. It's not because that's what they really want to be. It's the culture that raised them to behave in a specific way because sometimes they don't want to shame their parents, but with social media on the rise, with new norms, new popular culture, all the women's are going to start to really acknowledge that this lifestyle doesn't suit them. A lot, and any human being doesn't want to be a slave or compromised by a certain ideology or certain tradition because of our women's mindset. Traditions is overrated, something that they even claim man romanticized traditions. So women don't really have a specific uh, ideology that sticks to them. They evolve quickly. It's not their fault. I don't think they're dumb. I think they're pretty high intelligent. See, women are now working. Okay, they're working. They have their university degree. They put their time and effort, and now they want to feel what it feels to be a provider. I know a lot of women that if they're attracted to a guy, and it doesn't have to be a chat. One of my employees, our employees, excuse me, is he is not a Chad, by any looks, but he is a typical Edgar. Like he's tall, like he has his height, he has his, masculine traits. He is a guy that's not scared of risk. He's not scared of much of, a little bit of high risk opportunities, and girls are willing to go out with him because they see him as a guy that can take the lead. Doesn't matter his situation, and it's just a guy that doesn't have a college degree. He doesn't have a specific high paying job, and girls will take care of him because now girls are providers. So this is where I'm starting to see a lot of myths from, sometimes from everybody. I'm not saying looks is not important. Don't get me wrong. I think looks is very important when you're in your early 20s. But once girls grow, past their prime, they're going to start to look for men that they want to be with and they consider it's an investment or worth their time. But anyway, so with me saying all of this, so I saw that in Mexico, I see here in the United States. So this tells me it doesn't even matter where you go. The passport bro movement doesn't really go with me due to the simple fact that it's not even real. Women are women. There's a lot of evidence out there in YouTube where, yeah, a lot of guys in the West they have a deception with, some Easter Asian girls because it's basically all about money, all about materialistic lifestyle. So anyway, so for me, I gotta look beyond my future. I just gotta make sure that I'm know where I'm gonna retire, where I'm gonna invest my money, and just enjoy my life. Should I be upset that I don't have a girl, I don't have kids? No, nothing that I can do. I just got to learn that this is part of evolution. We're just evolving, and it's my time. Probably I was meant not to have any more descendants because maybe my family's not the best. Not the best, but maybe not the highest IQ. And you gotta respect the natural selection. The economy, the world's evolving rapidly. Only the smartest and the strongest and the fittest is going to survive. With time and time and everything's evolving. This is why we see drastic changes everywhere. Which I don't want to get into politics, but just to acknowledge that I'm just going to respect it. If it happens, if I end up getting married, have kids, and I'll go for it if it's the right time. If not, I'm not even worried about it. I'm just want to do my own thing. Okay, and this is my part. So for me, is I gotta love for myself and just not depend that I'm gonna have kids or have a wife. I gotta start looking out for myself and have everything prepared. That's part one. And part one B is for my viewers out there. Okay, basically the same role for you. If you're already beyond 26, if you don't have a girlfriend or you don't have any girls that know you, or you don't have anybody where they can recommend you a girl, because obviously dating apps or clubs are not the best way to meet women. You're gonna find the worst out of your city or out of your town. Just love yourself, man. Do something that's gonna get you a little bit of extra money so you can spend on retirement. I'll say save it, invest some lands in a foreign country where it's gonna be touristic, and make a small business and try to live the best of the best the last days of your life. So okay, that's for people that are not ashamed of being black pill or being mixed up. But I'm not a guy that's biased. I'm a guy that is pretty fair to everybody. Like I don't dislike anybody, and I'm not here to tell people how to live your life. Excuse me. Let me get a sip of my water. Excuse me. I'm a guy that wants to make everybody at least have something to look forward to. And this is for people. This is for my viewers out there. Let's say you're not Mgtow. Let's say you're not black girl. Let's say you don't believe in those ideology, and that's fine. You don't, like I said, we live in a free world still. You're free to believe in anything you want. That's why I believe in the that we were born with free will. But so let's say you don't care. Let's say that you don't really mind that. You don't care if you might get a little bit of humiliation or you don't care about criticism. So let's say you're a guy that cannot live without a partner. You need kids or whatever the case it be. So this is my advice. So I'm a normie. I don't know if I'm high IQ or not. So I don't know if my advice would be the best out there. But let's say that you don't mind any type of woman. So my best recommendations for my viewers out there is, let's say that you don't care where she comes from. Let's say you're not, I'm not going to tell you how to, which woman to pick out. That's for you to figure it out. I'm not. That's your life. I'm not going to be your dad. I'm not going to be your mentor because I am a nobody. I'm just a guy that's living a normal life. But anyway, I'll say hit the gym first, change your diet, get some sleep. At least get 8 hours sleep by starting with that first. Start working out. Let's say you don't know what to do. My best recommendation is start with CrossFit for a year or do some boxing, some martial arts. MMA, boxing, or CrossFit are going to be your best friends if you happen to be a little bit overweight or you have excess weight that you don't know how to get it off because you're not an expert or you never participated in sports. Start with CrossFit, start with MMA, or start with boxing. Second of all, your diet. Let's say you don't know what to eat. Honestly, from what I've been studying, is just stick to protein, fiber, less carbohydrates. But honestly, you gotta invest in money. So for me, I didn't ask any recommendation. I just kind of figured it out on my own. I kind of look up the charts. So obviously, I already know. I avoid sugars. I stopped drink since 2021. I haven't had a soft drink. I drink my coffee black, and I just have water. So basically, I start with water and black coffee as my drinks. For food, in the morning, I just start with eggs. You know, oatmeal or fruit, pretty much. And the afternoons I start with a meat, like with salmon, steak, tuna, or breast chicken. At night I just stick to Greek yogurt. That's it. That's how it worked out for me. But everybody's different. Everybody has a different diet. But it doesn't. You don't really need like a high core diet. You just gotta have a well balanced diet. You just gotta have your protein, you gotta have your carbohydrates, the good kind. You just basically avoid sugary drinks, avoid desserts, avoid fast food. Just cook at home, and little by little, you have to figure out your own diet because everybody's unique. Everybody's taller, everybody's has a different frame. But let's say you don't know, you say it doesn't work out for you. My best recommendation is you have to probably go to a nutritionist who is trained in that field. But honestly, I'd rather not give any specific diets until I have the degree. But unfortunately, I don't want to give ill-informed information to everybody. So get lean. Uh, Looks max. Just get a haircut that best fits you. A little bit of skincare, and maybe if you're wrinkling, let's say you're in your 30s, get a little bit of you need Botox. Yes, people might criticize looks max, but that's the only way that's going to help you out, man. Because you got to have a positive image of yourself for the pictures, and have someone take pictures that makes you not look like you're angry, you're upset, or you're just a guy that is angry about the world. Have like a female that you trust that's going to try to help you at the best, or out, or look at YouTube videos how to smile, how to make your pictures, and have something interesting in me. So what really helped me out when I was dating, because obviously it didn't even matter if I had some looks or not. Like I said, I've been rated before. They say I'm a 6, they say I'm a 7. Depending on how people view looks. But let's say if you're like me, you're a manlet. Sometimes girls don't really care about your looks as much. It's more of a height thing. In reality, women see your background, so you got to make your background very interesting. So maybe you want to be noticed for something interesting about you. Let's say that you travel, you do a hobby, you do sports, something that's going to get the girl's attention. For me, what I ended up doing was on Tinder. When I used to be on Tinder, I had the gym, like a picture of me in the gym, of me in Paris, in one where I'm like showing my muscles. So because women are going to start to see that, okay, this guy at least has his life together. And this is for people that is already above the age of 26. Now you're hitting your 30s. This is not really meant for people underage, and I do apologize for that, but that's how it is. This is a different world. So that's my best recommendation. Or make some friends. Let's say you don't have any friends, or you have a lot of social anxiety. You need to really, for me, what really helped is you gotta, I don't know if you have a job or not, just try to talk to your coworkers that say that you don't have nothing in common. You gotta start out with a hobby. For me it was dancing. I started dancing, that's how I met people, and that's how I started to meet girls. And little by little I started to date, not because they truly liked me. Probably they never even liked my looks. It was more because, okay, this guy has a job, this guy travels, this guy has something that I can benefit off. You just gotta acknowledge, you gotta take this in consideration. If you're not the best looking, if you don't have the best physique, or whatever the case may be, yeah, girls might show a little bit of interest, but a lot, you got to keep in mind they're not going to be totally attracted to you. When the time comes, they might leave you, or they might stay with you forever. So just keep that in mind. So that's my recommendation. Let's say you don't care anymore, you don't care about criticism. Let's say you don't know how to handle yourself without having a partner. Then that's my best recommendation. That's what worked out for me. Um, Honestly, you just gotta participate in a hobby that is considered social, like dancing, or something that women and men can participate at the same time. Like dancing's the best way to really meet females because dancing is universal. That's pretty much what I can think of right now because I don't really participate in other sports besides the gym, MMA, and that's pretty much it. Second of all, um, you just gotta make friends out there, man. If you're at work, if you don't talk to anybody, at least try to make conversation. Sometimes it sucks, but try not to act shy. Don't try to be someone that you're not. You just gotta be normal. Just have something that speaks out the best of you. So That's for people. That's part one. And part two of this video, or part two of what I've acknowledged in Mexico for this video that I want to share out with you guys is basically I don't fit anywhere. You know, you can have your family, relatives, you can have people to talk to, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a specific common culture practice with everybody, you're gonna be outcast. You're gonna be not really as a fun cousin or a fun friend or people to hang out with. And it's why I begin to acknowledge, even in some of my family relatives, they asked me if I was, they like. So pretty much, I read books. I have a lot of knowledge because obviously my one of my uncles likes to talk to me because he's didn't have the chance to really get a higher education, so he likes to ask questions. And it was quite sad. I made more conversations with a 15-year-old cousin, but it's because he is kind of like a guy that he wants to better himself and he wants to really have a lot of knowledge. And one of the funniest things, I don't think it's brutal. I don't think it's something to be mad. It's just basically, and everybody in this world doesn't have a lot of appreciation for intellectuals or for anybody that wants to really provide something valuable for the world. But one of my aunts, not it's not her fault. God, bless her kind heart, because she's one of a cool aunt. She said, I feel like she's like pretty much say you don't really have a lot of friends, right? You don't really have like a lot of going on with you with social life. And I'm like, I couldn't lie to her. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't have a lot of, I only have very few friends, and that's because of my old religion. And it's not hurtful. She met me when I was a kid. She met me when I was a teenager, and as an adult, I came back. Yes, like I'm independable. Like I have my job, I have my car. Like I'm not a total bum. But she noticed that she has never seen me with a girlfriend or even heard my mom talking about my girlfriend. Yes, I had girlfriends, but they never lasted more than 5 months. But even my family relatives were able to acknowledge that, I'm just very unique from others. But it's not because they see me as a stupid or a guy that is incompetent. It's like you're too formal or too educated, too nice, and that's the truth. But I'm not going to change my personality for anybody. This is where I still believe that I have the freedom to choose who I want to be, and this is why one of the best philosophers in the world, or even like Beethoven, even with his disability of not hearing, but he was one of the best musicians. Very important people have been single. It's because I'm not saying I'm not even high IQ. I might be I might have a lot of admiration for smart people, for intellectuals out there, but maybe I'm not ever going to be one, depending on what I do with my life. But a lot of us, it's not, we don't choose to be single. It's basically our lifestyles is not suitable for everybody. A lot of people want to live these like mediocre lives, and some of us want to really acknowledge something. It's kind of like my cousin, coming from it's not really considered a third world country, but it's like a second world because it is still, but it's still developing, such as Mexico. A lot of my cousins are ashamed that it's a country that lacks motivation, lacks engineering, or not engineering, but just that spark of trying to be something better, instead of trying to be independent of another country's you know market. And so I'm like my cousin, he really wants to like do something like where we're not like total leeches, but that's a different topic. So so for me, I acknowledge that there's nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be angry, nothing to be very unsatisfied with myself, unconscious. I'm just glad that I didn't chose to be a mediocre type of dude that just sits down, who works, has kids unexpectedly and struggling. At least I'm able to travel, I'm able to at least go to university or college. Let's say I don't have my degree, but at least I had something to offer to the world. Like hopefully I can become someone in the near future. I really hope so, but I got to be realistic. Sometimes it's even brutal for us that we might not even have the IQ to become someone very important. This world's evolving a lot quicker than what I expected. We're seeing a lot of changes in the economy, probably another industrial revolution, and this is why we're having a lot of issues because sometimes the new reforms are they're done with a purpose. I don't really think it's done because someone is too unintelligent. I think it's because we don't see the bigger picture. AI is evolving, the economy is becoming different, so they got to start to invest in technology and some of these like social programs that are meant for people with who have low income. They can't afford that anymore. They got to start investing in the product of the country or the nation's wealth economy. So it's another video. I don't want to get into politics, but this is why I acknowledge. So for me, that I know I don't fit anywhere. I'm not going to have a cool social life. I'm not going to have the wife. If I have the IQ, I'm just going to stick to my education, such as I was thinking about going back to university and finishing the political science degree and try to do something with it, or get into like coding, or one of the other things that really get my interest. Let's say that isn't coding's not worth it, or politics it's not the same. I just rather enjoy the last prime days of my prime energy. I've always wanted to build stuff. Like I love building. I love watching skyscrapers. I always enjoy watching cities being built. Or even if I still have a little bit of a higher IQ, and who cares, aviation. I always loved airplanes. I always loved flying. This is something that I see forward in my life. This is why I don't have a specific desire anymore for women or for kids. I did had I had this desire when I was in my early 20s, where I used to be very upset that I couldn't not even find a girl. But now, like, I don't care anymore. Like, for me, we're just different. We're me. I don't know. Like, I feel like this, like, my lifestyle or us, Mgtow lifestyle, it's meant for a reason. Mgtow's not because you're bitter. It's not because it's meant to be something bad. It's just a new lifestyle that we acknowledge that there's more beautiful things out there than trying to pursue the old same style. But anyway, that's part two. And the last part three, is do not ever try to be someone that you're not. Because sometimes, like I said, sometimes family members could take things that might be a little bit offensive, or friends, or you see your people that, you don't know how they even did it. They have wives, they have kids, they have this and that. Don't be ashamed of yourself. You have something valuable, use it. You gotta really take acknowledge that some talented people do not exploit their talents because they have a lot of distractions, such as soccer players or athletes, scientists, political dudes, or in general, etc. If you have a talent, exploit it. Enjoy life. There's other more things to do. There's other loopholes as well. Let's say that you have your needs, and I'm not talking about escort matching. I'm starting to acknowledge that that's not very safe as well, because you don't want to get yourself um you don't want to be I'm trying to say this the more respectful. You don't want to get yourself a disease. Obviously, there's countries that's permitted. I'll say try to do that over there where it's legal, where it's more controlled. But let's say that you still cannot live with yourself. You need, we have our needs and everything. So sometimes the best way to do it is, like I say, if you have the money, if you have the resources, let's say you exploit a talent, you're just these are not escorts, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people, what they do, what I've learned is they go to these like social event clubs. Yeah, a lot of people say it's like a little bit simp shit, but let's say you're single, let's say you're at least fit. I'm not going to say what it is because I'd rather you guys figure it out on your own. It took me a while, but there's loopholes in the world. This world's a game. There's parties, specific parties that you have to pay in to get in. That's a little pricey, but at least you get a little bit of the human pleasure. It's just hard work. This world's not free. Nothing's free in this world. So that's what I've learned. That's what I acknowledged in this, 2 week vacation. I had to do a little bit of mind clearance, and then a little bit of meditating. And all I can say is, it is what it is. Do not hate yourself. Do not hate your presence. If you still want to live, go for it. Explore your talent. Explore whatever you can find that works out for you. because nothing's fair in this world. A lot of people have a lot of disabilities that they can't even work. But I don't know. It's up to us individuals to figure that out on our own. And I cannot tell you how to live your life. If you're like, I don't want to get too much into it, but people that say, I don't recommend roping. I say I don't, I don't. I'm not going to tell you how to. I'm not going to tell you how to. I'm not going to tell you how to. You should live your life. It's up to you. I'm totally unbiased. Yes, because I have an ideology, I'm not going to try to enforce it to anybody. This is why I want to be unique. That's why I want to be my own thing in this YouTube channel. So I acknowledge that, yeah, like it doesn't matter if you look smacks, but I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't. It doesn't matter what you do if you don't have if you never had the opportunity to date anybody. More than likely, it's not going to happen unless if you lower your standards completely low where you just gotta accept the girl that it makes an effort to get your attention, but sometimes these are crazy girls like typical ex-drug addicts, single moms, crazy girls with a lot of problems. And in my case, that may be the case, and I'm not going to risk that. But let's say you have a chance to get at least a decent woman. Let's say she's not attractive, let's say she's a little bit unfit, but if she has a decent personality, then you might have a chance. Like I said, this world's really unpredictable. And I do understand that everybody keeps mentioning looks, people keep mentioning this and that, but there's a lot of things. You just gotta observe the world. You have to get out there and see it for yourself. Like every town's different. Second of all, you just gotta really love yourself, man. You gotta really look out for yourself, man. Nobody's gonna look after you. Not your family, not your brothers, not your friends, not the politics, nobody. It's us. This is, I do believe we're in a time where it's survival of the fittest. We're just not acknowledging because we have been in the comfort zone. But you got to start really looking out for yourself. You got to really start to exploit your talents, your passions, or whatever the case may be. It depends on your IQ. You got to be realistic. The world's unfair. So in dirt, you just, if you figured out your life, then look for the loopholes on how to enjoy life. That's what I've been doing lately. There's a lot of things that we didn't know about because we never really made the research. But there are things, like I said, the world's unfair. Nothing's free. You just have to look out for yourself and have the resources to afford things. And that's pretty much it. Up in conclusion, that's pretty much it about this video. That's what I have for you guys today. So I'll make another video tomorrow. But I'm exhausted. I just ever since I came back, it has nothing been but work, housework projects. So I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And staying. I had 2 weeks off for workout, so getting back to workout has been a little bit painful. So I'm just gonna go home, take a quick hot steam shower, then cold water to relax the body, and head to bed. So you guys have a good one. Stay tuned to the other video. Happy 4th of July, and see ya.